And myself, Brian, is from Sanlam, and I am Daryl Matthijs, Brian Abdoll, sorry, Sanlam, my partner, Daryl Matthijs, Noorder Paarl High School. Our partnership started out in March of 2015. Essentially what happened is that I joined the school in January 2013, and any new principal coming from outside of Paarl into Paarl, naturally, I realized I'm going to face challenges from community, from learners as well, from teachers. I've taught all my life in Mitchell's Plain, which is a totally different community and a different area. And coming into Paarl, I realized I'm going to apply for the job. If I get the job, I'll take it and I'll do my best. What I believe is good, what I believe needs to be done for teaching. After a year, after 2-3 years, I started picking up challenges, and when the opportunity came about to join Partners for Possibility, I grabbed it because I now realize that this is an opportunity for me to look at myself as a leader and also how I can take the school forward as a leader. So essentially, when I joined the school was new to me, and I won't say shocked, I was stunned by the fact that I joined a school with such a proud history and a proud tradition. The school was started in 1926. If you drive down the roadway, you'll see it's the building. I don't think they build schools like this anymore. On top, there's a sign, there's a date, 1926. Now, this school housed a primary school. It was the first school, which I understood, for non-white persons of Paarl. It was started by a group of clergymen in 1926, and these guys came together and they realized that we need to house and we need to have a place of learning for our kids. And it started out as a primary school, and it was a middle school, and at that stage, teachers could qualify after having a standard 8, which is a grade 10, and the school also housed a college. And at that stage, the school was called the Abdoll Institute. In 1954, the nature of the school changed, so that the college moved to the building next door, which was called Abdoll Teachers Educational College. 1954, the school became known as Noorder Paarl High School. And since that time, this school drew, it drew learners from the areas which we do not draw learners from any longer. The school built up over that period a proud tradition and a proud history. Just to mention a few of the achievements, I think across the length and breadth of South Africa as well as the world, many people are walking around who have walked the corridors of this school. I can think of a High Court judge today, Chantal Fortuin. I can think of the superintendent of the hospital, the Paarl Hospital, Breslau Kruger. Then there are Peter de Villiers, the Springbok coach, and many other people. I can think of Chris Bam, who was at the school. I think of and so many people who know the school so well, better than what I know the school. I don't know the names, but Alison Fry. Anyway, so this school. So what happened over a period of time? Since 1954, this school has been, I can call it a top high-performing school over a period of time. With the change in democracy in our country in 1994, our parents realized that there's a freedom. You can place your child at the school of your choice. And what the result is that the profile of the school changed, as people who would normally have placed their kids at this school now had the opportunity to put their kids at ex-Model C schools. With the result that the profile of the learner and the parent at the school changed. Currently, our school, we draw learners now from a different part of Paarl. Our learners are 50% from the farming areas, as well as a huge portion of our learners out of Bekweni, and then, of course, many of our learners out of informal settlements. So, coming to the school, and fortunately, I worked in Mitchell's Plain for 28 years as a teacher, as a deputy principal, etc. And I dealt with certain challenges in Mitchell's Plain, which was not foreign to me coming to Paarl. One of the major things I realized when I walk in here, I realized that discipline is now going to discipline is going to be the most serious thing that I will concentrate on firstly. If I want to ensure effective learning and teaching at this school, I need to have a disciplined environment. So that's one of the first challenges I was faced with, and I worked day and night to ensure that the discipline of the school changed. I'm not saying the school wasn't at that stage a disciplined school, but it took more than that. It took getting learners to realize that this is not going to be a place where I'm going to come sit and spend my time so my parent can enjoy or can earn a social grant. You're coming here to learn. So two focuses, it was discipline and it was curriculum. Making sure that we get the curriculum done in classes, but more than that. Learners were given targets. I pushed them and I said, you're going to pass. You're not going to sit in the school here. If that's the case, there's the gate. Get out. You're coming here to work. So it took all those difficult things. And of course, I received huge opposition from community, from learners, from parents, as well as from teachers. Because now teachers also had to begin to shift around and get out of certain comfort zones. So having met Brian and my partner, and Brian as a partner came and said, Daryl, what is your problems? What kind of issues do you face at the school? And I mentioned a few of the issues. A few of the issues. And essentially, the next one, right? The following one. So essentially what we looked at was developing a partnership, a plan. And part of this partnership plan, I realized that, yes, having the kids in the school is one thing. Having the kids being at school every day, disciplined, is another thing. But how can I excite our teachers and our learners about teaching? How can we do teaching differently? And that was the first part of our plan, was looking at a IT vision for the school. How can our learners compete with the rest of learners in Paarl and sit with the device in their hand so that learning can become enjoyable for them, so that they can engage with learning. Teachers can be challenged that I don't just come to school and teach a lesson, but if I can teach a lesson which my learners can communicate with me, we can engage with each other because we now have a different means of teaching a lesson. And that was where the IT vision came in. A second aspect which Brian and I, sorry, I'm supposed to be getting confused. Who should do what now? Okay, thanks.
Okay, good evening everyone. My name is Brian Abdoll, also from Sanlam. My father was a principal, so I'm very used to teachers talking a lot. But I can see this evening that the partners can talk just as much. So we were given a 10-minute deadline. I'm going to try and stick to it. I'm not sure about Daryl. But he presented sort of like an overview around where the school come from and the kind of challenges that we have at the moment. So when I looked at the school and the kind of engagement, I first spoke to Mary, but I thought Mary's got it covered where she's at. You know, I thought Chantal is more effective in terms of that kind of engagement. And it was about finding the connection between the principal and the partner. And I, very early on in our engagement, learned that Daryl is also a runner. And although this evening I may not sound like a runner or may not look like a runner, I do run. And I've done a few half marathons and cycling races and so on. But in terms of our engagement approach, you know, in Sanlam, I've done problem solving many times and complex issues and so on. So you look at the as-is, you understand the current situation, and then you develop You do the analysis of the key issues. You look for the low-hanging fruits, and then you develop a roadmap. But engaging in a school setup in South Africa is not as simple as that. So early on, I needed to learn very quickly that the Partners for Possibility under Symphonia had a few tried and tested tools. Let's see how this will work in the setup. So the stuff that we've done differently then is to first of all look at our relationships and establishing that relationship. And then we needed to ask the right questions. And then we needed to look at what is proper listening. And many of the stories that you heard this evening focused on that type of listening. And then it was about recontracting. So out with a Sanlam book, in with a PFP book. That's essentially what we've then done. We decided to focus not on a whole range of stuff that Darryl wanted to fix, but we wanted to focus only on two things for the year. And the one was to get the SMT behind the vision that Darryl had. And that was important. To get the educators behind the principal's vision and to get support for that. That was the one thing. And the other thing that I believe deeply in is how can we use IT in education, not only around the data-centric processes, not only about faster processing of numbers, but really integrating that into the education process. So those were the key goals that we then started off on. One of the key things with Partners for Possibility is that you don't have all the skills in yourself, not even as the partner, and many of the other groups also alluded to that, not even as the principal. So I looked at my network, and then I came across two individuals. They're sitting there at the back, Shamima McLeod and Dale Simons, that offered up their time and then focused specifically on the areas where they're expert in. We started with a Clarity 4D assessments. And the key focus was what Darryl wanted to do, starting at the school, given the kind of background, was to develop and produce productive and employable youth. It's a very simple statement, but he needed to make sure that as the learners leave the school, they can actually find a job and be productive in South Africa. It's a very profound and a very ambitious statement if you look at the unemployment rates of youth that we have at the moment. So that was the going-in position, and he needed to get people around him. We had two workshops, one in November last year and then early on in this year as well. And it used the Clarity 4D. I'm not sure if you can see very well, but it used the water being the earth, the fire being the red over here, and then the wind, which is the yellow, and then the green, which was the earth. So it was founded on the principles of Carl Jung. So it's very well thought through methodology. And we then asked the SMT members to undergo this assessment, and this is the result that we found. That's the names of the governing body members of the SMT, and as you would see, that we've got a couple of very good implementers at the school, but there's also a number of very good analysts in the school. So it's actually a recipe of success, because you deal with quality people, and that was my experience. Engaging with people that want to be teachers. This is where they want to be, and this is where they want to make the difference. So you have that energy of a good number of analysts and a good number of implementers. So it's only a question of formulating the proper vision that they can buy into, and then implementing the vision. The vision then changed slightly, and it says now that they're still in draft, but that's the collective vision that the SMT has come up with. It's building and supporting learners to grow into responsible, self-driven adults. And that is still, trying to make an impact here in the region, and still trying to make an impact in South Africa. Maybe with a visioning workshop, Darryl, you can just take it there.
Thanks, Brian. Yeah, this was held recently with Shamima McLeod, facilitating the workshop, and that SMT members could come together and they could look at the reason why they are at the school, and out of that we could develop a vision for the school. In other words, if they could determine why they come here on a daily basis, why educators are here, then we can look at. So if that is your purpose of being here, then how can we take the school further, given your strong points, given your strong, what stands out in what you're saying? So that was the part of that. Those are the photos. I suppose some of you may know the educators that you see there. Can we move on, Brian? Fine. And then it's the following is the IT. Are you going to do that? The IT plan.
Okay, now for the IT side, I asked Dale to engage with Daryl and also then with the senior staff in terms of not only looking at the supporting processes but really looking at bringing IT within the education process. And we had 3 simple goals. The one was to do an audit of the IT infrastructure that the school has. Recently, you know that there's Wi-Fi rollouts and there's laptops and stuff like that that's becoming available. There's war stories where laptops and tablets are locked away because educators are fearful of actually using them, deploying them at school and so on. So we needed to break those kind of barriers. So let's understand what we have. The second one was to establish a steering committee to take ownership of this plan. And the third one was simply to develop a roadmap for that IT integration. But what was important through this whole process is to make sure that we would have capacitated leadership within the school that understand the value of IT and that can actually integrate it within the education process. So that was the first thing. But the other thing, as an outcome, what we also wanted to do, to establish, is to make sure that the learners adopt the technology. And so that learner adoption was also crucial. A link to that, what Daryl wanted is that he wanted IT clubs to be established. You know, in the best projects that I've worked with, is that you huddle, you work together, and that is how you learn from each other. So the IT clubs within the school is also a key outcome that we were after. So the next steps that we have, we want to finalize the vision and the implementation thereof, and we want to incorporate the IT roadmap within that vision. We want to share the profiles amongst the SMT members, again, a bit more deeply so that they can be contracting and recontracting in there. And then we want to develop the integrated roadmap. I want to briefly tell a story about Louis Pugh because that is a profound South African example in closing. But I want to give a word to Daryl just to talk about his journey and his experience in this program as well before we close.
Thank you, Brian. What I would say very briefly is the following. I believe that together with Partners for Possibility, as well as together with a partner, a business partner, one of the things I realized, which is crucial in our country, is the great divide between schools. Just a kilometer up the road here is a school that has everything. Then you have a school which is a kilometer from them, which is us, where we have almost next to nothing. Now, how can I begin to address that issue? I'm not saying I want to compete with those schools. What I'm saying is, how can we ensure at this school that we can develop a school, we can attract a learner who is a learner that can exit the school, but is useful in our economy. It's a huge task, and being a principal in South Africa today, it's a huge, huge challenge, especially even our huge challenges we have at schools. One of the things that I believe is that at Noorder Paarl High School, because of our tradition and our history and where we come from as a school, I believe that if we can begin to develop a different thinking, how we can attract learners to the school, given where we are situated. We are situated in Paarl, in an area which is, if I can call a simple word, it's in a dorp and it's in the town itself. So why do we attract only learners from outside the dorp? Why is this school not attracting learners from our surrounding areas? Number one. And how can I do that? I can do that if we can provide a decent education to learners. I don't think a parent looks at the school and says, that school has got 20 of this and 15 of this and so many school fields. And a parent wants to know my child is receiving a good education. And that is the one thing. So I would like to think that this school would once again reclaim that space it had in Paarl as a school of choice for parents. And together, I believe, with a partnership in Sanlam and whatever other partnerships there can possibly be, I believe that together our schools need to rise up and need to that gap that exists needs to be lessened. And the only way to do that is not by providing and trying to build bigger halls and creative sports fields, but to provide our kids with a decent education. And it is my trust and my hope that through the partnerships, we can begin to make those small dents that need to be made. Having listened to Louise van Rijn, I believe that is also one of Partners for Possibilities, one of their ambitions and their goals, and that is they realize that space between privileged and less privileged is never almost going to be, the gap is never going to be closed unless we begin to change our thinking around teaching in South Africa. Thank you.
Just three last points before we close. I just want to tell Alan, or I want to tell Chantal that I didn't stick to the corporate branding, but I kept to the blue. So it's not green, but it's blue. So it's still Sanlam represented here. That's the one point. The other point is the location of the school was highlighted. And when we spoke to the IMG of the department here at Paarl, and we expressed the kind of issues that we're facing with, the one thing that she said to us was, why didn't you have a vision, or why did you change the school to become the most diverse school in Paarl? And that is the long-term vision that we said to each other, is that is what we should be striving for, to change, not to push people away, but to actually draw people in. And in order to do that, you have to go back to basics. You have to make sure that the product that you have is excellent, and therefore, and then you have to do something on top, and that's where the IT strategy comes from. So as a long-term vision, Noorder Paarl wants to obviously pursue excellence, but also go back to becoming the most diverse school here in the region. And then just the last point around Louis Pugh. You know who he is, you know what he stands for, and you know the kind of achievements that he had. But just a quick story in terms of tackling such a mammoth task that we've got before us. When he went to swim at the North Pole, that was after he'd done the Arctic and so on, he went with Professor Tim Noakes. So if you're banting or no banting, you either a detractor of the story or promoter of the story. But it took him 7 days, the crew, to go up to the North Pole. And then into the 4th day, the problem that Lewis had is that he was actually getting warm. And the swimming pool in the ship that they had, for some reason, couldn't be filled, and it couldn't stay filled. And he was saying to the professor that I'm not getting. He's afraid of what's happening in 7 days' time. They must do some practices. He was trying to acclimatize his body by walking with his speedo and a t-shirt on the deck and so on, but that wasn't enough. So the professor told him to do a trial swim. And he said, "You must be mad, because I'm doing this 1 kilometer swim. I don't want to do anything more." They then agreed to do the 400-meter swim. Into the North Pole, pitch black water, 4.2 kilometers depth. It's a daunting task. It's something that he hasn't done before. The other statistic is that it was minus 1.7 degrees Celsius. So it's colder than he's ever swum in his life. He agreed to the 400-meter swim, and he dived in, and after 50 meters, he couldn't do it anymore. His crew was trying to cheer him on, and after the first 100 meters, his hands were swelling up, his goggles started freezing, and he couldn't almost move. They tried to motivate him to finish the 400-meter swim, but he didn't almost survive. He said that he almost died. That evening, he was standing on the top of the boat after they got him out, and his friend then reminded him of what he's doing? He asked him if he's okay. He said he's obviously not okay because he's trying to recover from where he's been, the morning. But his friend gave him 3 anchors. The one was, understand where you come from, understand why you're doing it. And he thought back to what his father has taught him around environmental management and those type of stuff. That was the first anchor. So he needed to understand where he was coming from. The second anchor was that he looked at, in cases of diversity, or adversity rather, you think of your successes. Now, again, here we think of the successes that Paarl had. The third anchor that you add is that, think about what kind of legacy you want to leave behind. So if one focus on understanding why we in a particular space, we focus on not on our challenges all the time, but also focusing on our successes, and then think about the kind of legacy that we want to leave for our children. Then breaking down a mammoth task into doable tasks actually becomes possible. So I think that is what this year has been to me about taking education seriously here in South Africa, and working with the tried and tested recipe to make a difference in this country. So thank you very much for the opportunity again from Sanlam as well as PFP. And Melinda, you've been very quiet, but we will probably see a bit more of you later. But yeah, thank you for that, and also a big thanks to Melody.